Hey everybody guys, how you doing? Today I wanted to talk about self-centered needs and how it affects a marriage. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever felt like your spouse was being self-centered and being demanding and where they were demanding something from you and it made you feel like it was overwhelming or it was unfair? How did it make you feel? Well, today what I want to do in today's lesson is I want to talk about how every marriage has these moments where one person wants or needs something, but the way that we ask, it makes all the difference. You see, if we're not careful, those requests can come off as being self centered. And then when that happens, it can really hurt our relationship. And today, what I want to do is I want to talk about why these self centered needs are a problem. And then I want to talk about what they can do to your marriage and then what you can do to avoid them. So, what are self centered needs? Well, self centered needs are when you push your spouse to do something because you want it and you want it without thinking about how it's going to affect them. It's like saying stuff like, you know what? I don't care how you feel or what you want. I just need you to do this for me and for you to do it for me right now. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. This need could be something like you need to stop going out with your friends so much. And what you need to do is you need to spend time with me. You see, when you do this, what you're doing is you're ignoring your spouse's need for wanting to spend and needing to spend time with friends. And what it does, a lot of cases, it'll make them feel like they're being controlled. And listen, I get it. It's okay to want things in your marriage, right? But when your request feels more like a command, it creates tension. And when these things happen, they hurt the love that you have between each other and the connection that you have between each other. Now, what kind of impact can these self centered needs have on your marriage? Well, number one, it can cause a resistance. And this resistance, it builds up walls. You see, when someone feels like they're being told what to do, their very first instinct in a lot of cases is often to push back. I mean, think about it when someone tells you that you have to do this right now. How does that make you feel? Hmm? I think, like most people, they get annoyed. And even a lot of times they get defensive. So you don't want that, especially not in a marriage, because this resistance can turn into a pattern. Because instead of working together, what you're doing is you're constantly butting heads. And then what happens over time, this will create an emotional wall between you and your spouse. Now, let's say that one spouse demands the other to clean the house every weekend without asking for any of their input in it, right? I can just about guarantee that the other spouse is going to start to avoid these chores that have to be done altogether because what it is they feel pressured instead of being appreciated. Another thing is what happens is then resentment will breed bitterness. You see, because when demand becomes a habit, your spouse starts to feel like their opinions and their feelings don't matter at all. Now, they might do what you ask, but that's just to keep the peace. But man, inside, they're frustrated and they're hurt. Now, that frustration just doesn't go away, it just doesn't disappear. No way. What it does over time, it just builds up and builds up and builds up. You see, because resentment is like a poison, a slow poison. It chips away at the love that you feel for each other. And what it does is it leaves bitterness in its place. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. Let's say that a husband demands that his wife stop spending money on a personal hobby that she has because he feels like, you know what? It's not necessary. You don't need to do that. The wife will do is she'll say, well, okay, just to avoid the conflict. But she will grow bitter because her needs and her joys are just being blown off like they're not important to him. You see, because every time we do something positive in our relationship, what we do really is we build an emotional connection. And then every time that we do something kind or loving or thoughtful, what you do is you kind of like make what I call it like a deposit. But when you insist on having a self centered need met, it's like withdrawing that deposit that you just made. That's not good. And if there are too many withdrawals and then there's not enough deposits, that's when couples can feel disconnected. They can feel unappreciated. They can even feel unloved in a lot of cases. It's like demanding that your spouse cater to your every need, like cooking, cleaning, or organizing the house without being shown any kind of appreciation or helping out around the house, right? And what happens is that just deducts any positive deposits that you might have made. So, how do you replace these self centered needs with loving requests? Well, first of all, you start by checking yourself. You ask yourself stuff like, am I thinking about my spouse's needs or am I just thinking about my own? And if the answer is just, I'm just thinking about my own, then you need to stop and rethink about how to approach that situation. Maybe instead of demanding, you need to spend less time on your phone. Think about why it bothers you and say it in a different way, like, you know what? I really miss connecting with you. Why don't we set aside our phones for time and just have time to just talk? Another thing you can do is communicate with empathy instead of saying, you need to do this. Why not try saying something like, how can we work on this together? Because when you show you care about your spouse's feelings, what's going to happen is they're going to be more likely to respond positively. For example, instead of demanding, you better pick up the kids tonight, I'm busy. Make it a nice request like, hey, you know what? I got a lot going on today. Could you help me out by picking up the kids today? And then you need to work toward a mutual agreement. Work out an agreement that both of you, it makes you guys feel good about the decision that you make and any decision that you make, really. This means talking about things and talking them through and finding a solution that works for both of you guys. And instead of one spouse insisting that they take charge of the budget, for example, why not sit down together and then come up with an agreement of how to handle finances in a way that feels fair for everybody? And then why not use the policy of joint agreement that I call it? Don't make any decisions unless both of you agree on them. You see, it's about teamwork. It's about respect, which is what a man really needs. Instead of saying, we're going to my parents' house for Christmas, why not say, you know what? What do you think about where we should spend Christmas this year? Should we spend it at your parents or my parents? Why not just sit down and let's come up with a plan together so we can work this thing out? So don't forget, remember this self centered needs hurt your marriage by creating resistance, by creating resentment, and it'll cause emotional distance. And without those loving requests that build connecting and get you this positive deposits that you're talking about. Remember, marriage is about partnership. It's not about control. And then encourage. Why not encourage each other? Why not practice that this week? You know, make a small change this week because I know this small steps lead to big improvements in creating a healthy and a happy marriage. And as always, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to help us reach more couples. And be sure to check up next week here where we're going to continue to go on this subject talking about the six toxic traits. And we're going to cover these other ones along the next few weeks to come. And as always, remember Darling, one of us is crazy, and I think it's you. I'll see you real soon. Bye bye.